If you have a Skool community, then you know that churn is part of the game, but most of us are not really paying a lot of attention to it. So if you do have a Skool community and you have a Claude account, I'm going to show you how I built myself a weekly churn sweep that goes through and sees anybody who's canceling for whatever reason, follows up with that person, documents everything so that I can start to see patterns and it gives me an opportunity to reduce my churn rate. So I will go over this with you, created a little HTML, and if you are part of Futureproof, the Evolution Lab, my Skool community, all of this is going to be in there for you, but follow along. You can totally do this just from watching this video. Okay, so most of us do understand that churn is part of the deal, right? When you have a monthly subscription, but we typically don't have the time to give it the attention that it actually deserves, because even that small percentage change in your churn rate can mean a lot for your bottom line. So currently people are probably leaving, but you don't really know why, and you're not doing anything to help mitigate that. So this weekly churn sweep is going to fix all that guessing. So here's what we do. There's 3 different ways that people can leave your community, and they each need 3 different messages depending on what that is. So the first way is if you're doing a free trial, then they join the free trial, but then they chose not to convert. And so what they need from you in that case is a nice little DM, a soft thank you, a low friction way to tell you what was missing, like why didn't they stick around. The second reason people leave is because their payment fails. And sometimes this can be involuntary. So their card expires, they had some, travel freeze hold, who knows? So what they need from you in that point is a heads up. No feedback asked yet, because it's not like they've even decided anything, right? They just need to know that, hey, this is happening. You might want to do something about it before it does. And then you've got your true cancel, the deliberate, I'm going to cancel my membership. And this is when it's perfect time to really have a genuine ask for why. Like, make it really easy for them to give you a response, and ideally, optionally, even an anonymous response, because that means that they can feel, more comfortable giving you the real deal and not worried about hurting your feelings. All right, so the 3 messages. So think about how you would manually reach out to each one of these folks. If you knew they were about to churn, what would you say? So the idea is to keep it non-obligational and genuine. So these are just templates, but of course, write them in your own voice. So for example, if they chose to leave a true, this is pretty similar to what mine looks like. So I saw you're heading out, no hard feelings at all. I just want to get better at this. Would you take 60 seconds to share some feedback? Now, I have a form, and I do suggest this, like anything you can do just to remove the friction, make it really easy for them is helpful, but don't wait until you have a form before you start doing this. So it's a few quick taps. It's totally anonymous unless you want to share your name. And then I have the link to the form. I read every single response. It genuinely helps. Thank you for giving whatever your community name is a shot. And it works because it names a thing that happened without flinching. It asks for one small thing and then makes the anonymity the default. So honestly, and then this works because it's just really simple and they can be anonymous. Now, you're not going to get a reply to every single one. Don't expect to, totally fine, but you will get some, and every one of them is helpful. So if a trial declined, what would you tell them if they tried your community? I saw your trial's wrapping up. Totally no worries, and thank you for giving it a try. If you've got 60 seconds, I'd love to know if there's anything we could have done differently. It's a few quick taps, totally anonymous, unless you want to share your name. So again, same deal there. And then if their payment failed, this is more of a heads up. So quick heads up, looks like your payment method needs updating. So your membership is set to turn off in the next few days. I would just say few days or soon. Totally fine if that's on purpose. I just didn't want you to miss it by accident. One thing worth knowing, the rate is whatever it is today. So if you're on a lower legacy price today, you'd be coming back at the new price. And sometimes people do enjoy that heads up because oftentimes they don't even know that your price has gone up because they've been in your community for a while. So this gives people an opportunity to react to this before they get kicked out, didn't realize it, and then when they come back in, the price is higher than it was originally. So yeah, and just a little note to watch the price line, if you do have the legacy tier. So that's why like I just kind of made this a little bit evergreen where I can say the AI knows what my current price is a month. So when I schedule this task, it does it correctly. But instead of like having to go find what tier they're on right now, I just say if you're on a lower legacy price, you'd be coming back at the new price. That way it applies whether they are or not. So then you need some good rules, some hard, fast rules. And these are the ones that I came up with for my, churn sweep. Nothing is ever sent without my approval. I don't feel comfortable having AI go write these messages, even if I've given it word for word template what to say without me seeing who they're sending it to and approving it. The second one is never message annual members. So that was something I ran into in the beginning is if an annual member churned or canceled their plan, they might still be in your community for another 8 months or however long. So you don't need to be sending them a message right now. Never send a duplicate. Check the tracker and open the actual chat, and the chat history is the source of truth. So if Claude goes into my Skool chats and opens my chat and sees that I've already reached out to this customer, we've already had a conversation going about it, it's not going to go send them another message on it. And then never reply on my behalf. So if somebody does write back, that's mine to answer, right? So AI is going to flag it, it's going to record the response for records, but it's not going to reply. Now, a couple of judgment rules worth adding, just depending on what's happening with you and your community. I obviously skip anyone if somebody has already, because that happens sometimes, would be like, I wanted to give you a heads up, I'm going to be canceling because I've got this, that, or the other thing going on. We don't send messages to those people, obviously. And the second one, though, that a lot of people don't think of is decide which tiers you're not chasing. So if you are trying to sunset one of your tiers and you're kind of hoping people will voluntarily leave so you can get rid of that tier, those are obviously people that you're not going to even probably send a message to because you don't want them to stay. You're good with them going. So if that's something that you're doing, and some people are in that situation, just something to consider. Okay, and then what you're going to need is 2 documents. And don't worry, Claude builds them both. You don't have to build documents, but you are going to need them. And you're going to need to know where you put them or where, Claude builds them. So the first one is the tracker. And this one is really the operational state only. 1 row per person. And it's going to have the member, the plan, the status, which message went out, whether it was A, B, or C. Did they reply? Did they fill out the form? If you have a form, my churn sweep actually goes to check my email as well, just from the last week to see if there is any form returns, because that's where I get all of my form returns if people do use the form. And it's really easy for AI to check because I just gave it the subject line to look for, and it can easily go see if a form was returned, the outcome pending, saved, or churned, and then a saves table and archive for anyone who's fully gone. And then the second file is more like the pattern, right? What's their reasoning? How far they actually got in the content before leaving. So another thing that I should probably show you is the questions that I ask on the form. And this is why I do the form, because it makes it really easy for them to answer. And a lot of times people will fill out the form, but also give me comments based on, what they said. And that's really helpful. So I'll show you that as well. But basically this is going to be the pattern library. And then that way the quotes and analysis, they never go in the tracker like the patterns, and the operational status never goes into the patterns. So they keep them separate. It makes it a lot easier for you to make sense of it and for AI, if you're using AI, to help you make sense of it. So it takes a couple of months, right? But there will be themes that start to appear. And what surprised me most was that price was almost never the real reason. And the dominant pattern in my own data is people who like the community intend to use it, but never carve out the time. So they cancel, like they're doing a subscription audit. They've got all these things. And we all know how that is. I think a lot of us are guilty of that. And what lands on that is often just, I haven't had time to use it. Good for me to know, right? I've also had immediate saves from this. So literally had people change their mind and decide to stay, because if it's something that I can actually fix and it's aligned with how I want to run my community, it gives me an opportunity to fix that. And they typically really appreciate that and oftentimes end up staying. Okay. So before we go any further into the setup, there's 2 things I want to show you. There's one thing you're going to need in Claude in order to allow this to work on a scheduled task for you, and that is to be sure that you have Claude browser extension enabled. So first you've got to have the browser extension, which is right here. You can download the Claude browser extension at the Google Chrome extension store. But then you're also going to need to open up your Claude and go to your settings and come down here where it says Claude in Chrome. And make sure that this is toggled on. This will allow Claude to go use your browser, and that's how it's going to get to your Skool account. So if you're on Skool a lot, like myself, anytime I go to Skool, I'm already logged in. I just have to go there. So Claude will have the URL to your Skool group. It'll be able to get there in the browser. It'll be able to get into the chat. It'll be able to go see who's churning, and that's how it gets all this information. So it's all done via the browser. Okay, so that's one thing you needed to know. Now let me show you what questions that I ask in my form. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so here is an example of an anonymous feedback form that I got. So you can see I asked them the reason for canceling, didn't have time to use it. I asked them how far they got, completed the Business Brain Challenge. I asked them what they hoped Futureproof would help them with, and I wanted to get better at using AI. It's just finding the actual time to actually learn it, which I know is hard. And then what would have made you say? And then this is where you get a lot more in their own words. So this is a tough one because I know I need to make time for this. I just haven't made time for it. And every time I saw a message come through, I would then feel bad for not making time for it. I don't know what I would answer here, sorry, right? So very kind of this person to send me that information. Now I can add that to my data set. People don't have the time to build the thing that's going to save the time. I see this trap all the time. So anyway, those making it really, really easy and simple for people to give you feedback is really key here. Okay, so let's go back here. So when you're setting yours up, this is one thing that's really important. Like I said, Claude will build out the documents for you, your spreadsheets, the tracker, all that jazz. But you need to decide where it's going to live. And this is, again, another reason why you need a living workspace if you don't have one, or a business brain that lives in a folder on your computer that you use with Claude Cowork, because everything that you build, if it's a scheduled task, if it's, a skill that is scheduled to go out and do something at a certain time, whatever, any of those scheduled tasks are tied to a path, right? A scheduled task stores the path to your files. So every Monday, it's going to go look for them at that exact address. If you move that folder, if you rename that folder, if you reorganize your desktop or your documents on a Sunday tidying spree, then the task shows up Monday to an empty room. It's going to be like, oh, where'd my folder go? It's not at this, path. Not a huge deal. It's like fixable. In about a minute, you're going to have to point it at the new path of where you moved that folder. But it's something to be aware of. And that's why if you do have your living workspace, which I also teach you inside this community in Futureproof, huge game changer. But when you have that, every single thing that you do from your business has a steady place to live. It's always in your workspace. And you don't even mess with the files in there. You leave that to Claude. That way nothing ever gets out of order or lost. So permanent folder, decide once. And then have Claude build the system. So open Cowork inside your living workspace folder, or if you just say, maybe you call it a Skool Churn folder, wherever those documents are going to live, and you're going to leave them there. And then paste, there's a prompt I'll give you in Futureproof, but you can look through this, or you can just literally vibe code with Claude, which is what I did originally to create this. And now I'm trying to kind of reverse engineer what a prompt would look like. But basically, tell it what you want it to do. Like, act as my, churn sweep system. So just saying, here's my situation. My community is housed on Skool. My canceling list lives at this URL. So you can go into your Skool community, go to churning or canceling, can't remember the tab, share that URL. If you do have a feedback form, you can share that. Or you could say, actually, I think what I would do for this is say, I also get feedback via a form. And you can, connect to my Gmail and look for the subject line. So you might have to just tailor this a little bit for your setup and what that looks like. But you get the general gist. Create 3 files, a rules file. Here's the 3 templates for each churn type. So you want to give it kind of your templates of what you want it to say in those DMs to people. And then create a tracker for the operational state, a pattern library for the feedback itself. And then my guardrails, put these rules in the file, never send without my approval, that little short list of rules that I provided earlier. Ask me whatever you need before you build, and then create the files and show me what you made so I can correct it. if need be. Maybe you won't have to, but you might want to just look at, if you don't give it exact DMs to send, you might want to look at those first, have it a look over. Make sure you turn on your Chrome access for the permissions. And then the first time that I'm not going to walk you through it right now, but I showed you where you can find those Chrome permissions. But the first time that you're going to do this, Claude will typically, when you say, okay, great, that looks good, now make it recurring, set up a scheduled task, and then you can paste this in to run once a week, which is just basically telling Claude what to do. Now you can riff on this, you can just kind of go through it, step by step with Claude. You can use these prompts, whatever makes it easier for you. But once you say to schedule it, Claude will likely ask you, do you want to do it right now? Because if you give permissions once, then it should do it on repeat without pausing to ask for permission. So I always do that. Also, because this is going to be using your browser, I would test this live with Claude and say, hey, let's just do a test run. You're not going to send anybody anything. It's never supposed to send anyway. It's only supposed to draft. But tell me who's churning. What do we got? What would you suggest that we send as a DM, like test it and make sure that it's working appropriately before you schedule that. Yeah, so run it by hand once. And then that is the full payoff. I mean, that is the full build. And the real payoff is you can stop guessing why people are leaving. You actually get their words, filed by the theme. You get all of these patterns, you get all of this data, and you can start to reduce your churn rates. So if I look inside my Claude, you can see here that it is on a schedule task. So this is where you can schedule tasks. You can go new task, or you can just tell Claude to schedule the task. But if I open up mine weekly, this is what mine looks like. You can see it runs most of the time. It looks like it skipped this time, probably because my computer was asleep or couldn't get into the Futureproof or whatever. Anytime you have a scheduled task of any type, if it is, let's see, like these are all scheduled, it'll give you a little exclamation point or a hand if it's waiting for a permission, and you can kind of tell if something needs your attention. But typically it runs like clockwork, and then it just tells, this is the full prompt of what it's supposed to do. So the prompt itself is pretty short because everything else that we've given it to refer to in those files is most of the instructions. So that is what I have for you, my friends. If you want to join us inside Futureproof, there's a 7-day free trial going on, at least the day that I am recording this, and you're welcome to come in and check it out. And if you are in Futureproof, I will be sure to paste the document that I shared with you on the screen, as well as the prompts below.